Welcome back to my next project. This time I am building the T-34 85 from Revell in 1:35 scale. I already did a quick inbox review of this kit a few weeks ago. Let's begin with the construction. Like with most kits, I am starting with the lower hull. The running gear looks quite unique. You have all these little boxes that you put inside the lower hull. Then from the outside you can see the springs inside the vehicle. Just make sure that everything lines up for the swinging arms. There's even a little bit of interior included. You have these driver controls and 2 seats. They don't offer much detail, but that's okay, since even if you have an open hatch, you can't really see them later. It looks like someone forgot to print the part numbers on these 2 mudguards. Luckily they are easy to spot. They can only fit in one spot, so you should have no problems lining them up correctly. This is the case for most parts. You have all these guiding lines all over the kit and every part only really fits in one spot anyway. You just have to look closely to pick the right one, as some parts come in different variants. The swinging arms are made from a single piece. If you placed everything right in the first steps, then you should have no problems lining them up. The foremost swinging arm looks a little bit different because it is not spring-loaded, so you have to watch out for that. These 4 plastic stripes had to be added under the tank. There are no guiding lines or any indications where to add them, so I had to eyeball them based on the instructions. You can only see them when the tank is flipped anyway. Actually, the machine gun is movable, but I glued it directly because I found it very unstable and wobbly. But sometimes following the instructions would be smart, because now I can't fit the cover over the gun. One quick cut and it looks much better. While there are no photo etched parts included, things like these grills still look decent enough in my opinion. I don't quite understand the reason for these parts. I guess these are some sort of covers for the air intake, but it doesn't make much sense to include them since you can only see them if you build the engine covers up and the kit isn't really suitable for that. Back to the front to add the reinforced driver's hatch. I could build it open, but I don't have a figure to add here, so I will close it. The 2 exhausts are then added right onto the rear plate. I always like the look of Soviet tanks with all those rivets, as they create the perfect base for pin washes and highlights later on. Now I can combine the upper and lower hull. But with that came some problems, since the fit is really bad. I have to work one side after the other and use lots of tape and glue to keep everything in place until the glue completely dries. Next in line are the wheels. All of them have this small seam line that should be removed. For that I'm using my hobby knife and different kinds of sandpaper. Each wheel is made from 2 parts that click together. but if I glue them now, it will be harder to get paint in between them, so I will do that later. Now the wheels look too smooth and unrealistic, unless it's a factory new vehicle. This vehicle isn't factory new, so I will add some damage using my diamond file and the hobby knife. This kind of damage occurs regularly on rubber wheels, and there are lots of references on the internet for that. The hull is still missing most of its details, so how about we fix that? If you have the right tools at hand, you can replace all these included handles with thinner ones made from metal. But I don't have any thinner metal wire, so it made no difference in my case, and I still think they look nice. You just have to make sure to line them up properly and that they all have the same angle. Of course, there are external fuel tanks included. To damage them, I am using heat. Hold them over a candle or a lighter for a few seconds, but not too long, because you don't want to melt it completely. The plastic should start to melt and get soft and creates all these dents. Just make sure that the glue is completely dried, as most plastic glues are flammable. The fuel tanks and storage bins can now be added onto the tank. I was thinking about making one of the drums missing and attaching just the empty bracket, but there was no options for that in the included parts. On top of that, I really liked how the damaged ones turned out. There is a clear part for the lamp included, which I will attach after the painting is done. This step gave me quite some trouble. The instructions weren't really helping how to combine these two parts. But if you can see this hole here, they are lined up correctly. The gun breech is kept rather minimalistic with only a few details, but that's not really a problem as you won't see much of it later either way. After a little bit of cleanup, I can start working on the turret. You have to add these little pieces on both sides of the turret. I looked it up and apparently some T-34 turrets looked like that. It probably depends on the factory they were built in. For the periscopes there are clear parts included. I masked them later to hopefully keep them clean after the painting. The gun breech fits without a problem. But since it isn't made to be movable, I have to decide about the position now. Like the hull, the turret has a bad fit as well that required lots of tape and glue. But in the end it worked out. Next, the mantlet and the gun are added. The barrel is made from a single piece that required minimal cleaning, so that's good. The cupola is made from these two parts and then added on top of the turret. I won't glue this hatch in position now, since I am still thinking about adding a figure here later, so it would be nice to have it open. If you have seen my box review, you will know that these towing cables are garbage. I instead made my own with a power drill and some regular binding wire. The towing eyes are then attached with a little bit of super glue. To create some damage on the mudguards, I am going back with my trusty pliers. I carefully bend them, making sure to not accidentally rip them off. The turret is already textured, but I want to further improve it. I am using AK Modeling Putty Standard for this. It is a water-based putty that can simply be applied with an old brush and cleaned up with water. I stipple it all over the turret to hide any unwanted lines. I let it dry for a few minutes and then stipple the surface again to create the desired effect. This texture resembles the cast steel many Soviet tanks used during that time. The driver's hatch and the machine gun parts are made from cast steel as well, so don't forget to texture them too. I now want to add some storage as well. For that I am using milliput. Take equal parts of both bars and mix them for a few minutes. Then I roll it flat and cut out a rectangle with a knife. This is then carefully rolled up to make it look like a bedroll. With a silicone brush I am creating the dents for the straps. The milliput is very soft, so I don't need to apply much pressure. For the smaller folds I am using a finer silicone brush. I am adding the bedroll now, so I can conform it to the surface and don't have to ruin the surface with my fingers all the time. I just have to reapply some of the folds I destroyed earlier. You can always use reference photos for this, or if you have plastic parts to look up sizes or where folds would occur. To create some backs I am starting with an egg. Then I use the brush again to make the narrow parts where the back would be closed. After that I can add the back onto the tank and refine it, add some more folds and make the top part a lot thinner. And with that finished, let's take a look at the current progress. The kit was nice and quick to build and had, apart from the fitting of the hull and the turret, no issues. I have yet to decide if I want to create a camo scheme or go with the regular Soviet green or even a captured German vehicle. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave a like, comment and subscribe if you have not already. I hope to see you next time. Goodbye.